If you think that being a parent is the greatest and most important job you're ever going to do, but you also fully understand that it's filled with challenges and headaches too, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Dad's All In podcast. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dad's All In show. Happy Sunday evening, or whatever day you are listening to this on the podcast or watching it on the replay. Happy day to you, my friend. Happy you joined me. And tonight we are talking about youth sports. We're talking about ways to save some money in youth sports because, as we alluded to in a previous live show and also in a video, there is an enormous jump in what families have to deal with as far as pricing for youth sports. And it's not just the fees to get involved with the league and the club or the travel team. It's the equipment. It's all of it. It has gone through the roof. As I said previously, it has gone up about 20 to 40% depending on the sport you play, depending on the specific level that your kid is playing at. It has gone up astronomically over the last few years. So we are going to dive into all of that. I'm going to give you some special tips to help you get a better idea of how you can save some money when it comes to youth sports. First, I want to remind you every Monday we drop a new video, and this week is no different. So head on over to the Dad's All In Hub YouTube channel, and you can find a video dropping Monday about this exact topic. I'm happy you're here, and if you're a longtime listener, thank you for continuing to listen and show up. And if you're brand new to the show, happy you're here as well. And podcast listeners, as always, rate, review, subscribe, all those things will help us get this out to more parents who need it. Because it's not easy. It's not easy out there in parent land, especially when we're talking about finances these days. And it's not just gas prices, although that is super challenging as well. So let me dive into a few things that will help you maybe take the sting out of the overall costs of what it is being charged to you to be involved with your kids' youth sports activities, regardless of whatever sport it is. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that there are scholarships that are available. When we hear the word scholarship, we usually just think of like going to college, but it is also has to do with financial assistance. And if you're involved with a recreation league, a club team, a travel team, all these levels, many teams will have funds available to help families. Here's the pro tip though, they don't advertise it. They don't put it out into the world. You have to ask for it. So there are scholarships and opportunities that are available for families, but you kind of have to step out of your comfort zone. Find people who are in charge and ask them, hey, do you have any kind of financial assistance? And don't think that you have to be on like general welfare or have lost a job or some kind of specific hardship to qualify for this. That is not the case at all. Many times that might give you an extra opportunity, but that's not always the case. The other thing I'll tell you is sometimes these teams and clubs will team up with nonprofits. And even if the clubs aren't offering financial assistance, they'll say, hey, let me send you forward to this nonprofit and they can help you out with it. And whether they give you a reduced fee, meaning they've taken off some off the top, or they just charge you nothing at all for registration fees or for whatever costs of participating in the league, it varies, but it's definitely worth asking the questions. I'll give you this quick story. So if you don't know, if you're new to the show, I used to be a coach. Now, I gave up coaching at the high school level in a successful program because, well, I ended up becoming a dad and I had to scale things back. And when we had twins, I had to cut that off completely. Because, coaching a successful program, it can be time consuming, the amount of scouting that goes into it and planning and preparations and everything. But I gave that up to coach youth soccer for my son. And when I did that, we played in just a rec league. It was not club ball. It was really just kind of getting my son out there, and my nephew was on the team. It was fun. And we played one team that had this kid who was incredible. Probably 6 years old, I believe, 6 or 7, maybe the best 7-year-old I've ever seen. and I've been around the game a long time. Afterwards, I went over and talked to his family, and I said, "Have you ever thought about getting your son involved with a club team?" And they said a very typical answer. They said, "Well, that sounds great, but we just can't afford it." And I said, "How about I make some phone calls? Because you might be able to get a scholarship that will get him into whatever club that I was calling." And sure enough, they were like, "Yeah, let's take a look, bring him in, and we'll see what we can do to help the family." And that's what I'm getting at. Like, they're not going to broadcast that they have means to help families financially and scholarship wise and so forth. You have to ask for it. So be willing to ask for it. The other thing I'll throw out as far as discounts, sibling discounts are something that may not necessarily be broadcast too. Sometimes they'll put that in there, and they will advertise that, and it's helpful. But some clubs, some leagues, recreation leagues, travel teams, they will not broadcast that out, and you have to ask about a sibling discount too. So keep that in mind. The next thing beyond like financial assistance is looking at your gear and equipment. So depending on the sport that you play, it can be really, really costly to get equipment for your kid. What I will tell you is the best way to save money is to not fall into the let's make sure we've got elite stuff category, which so many families do. It's almost like if my kids got elite gear, they got an amazing jersey, they've got the newest cleats, they've got the newest sneakers, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be amazing at the support at the sport. So keep in mind there is nothing wrong with secondhand stuff. So if you just want your kid to be able to participate and keep the costs low, you can find things at thrift stores. You can find things maybe even like hand-me-downs and families and friends and so forth, but you can find things in secondhand and thrift stores and also online. For example, you can go into Facebook Marketplace or Poshmark, I think is another one, where you can go in and actually buy partially used. A lot of times the stuff that's available isn't really used that often. Think in terms of, have you ever had a kid that maybe they started something but they didn't stay at it too long? Like that stuff is just barely used. And you can get that at a huge discount that won't cost you nearly as much. The other thing I will tell you about equipment is sometimes if you ask the organization, the club, the travel team, whatever, the school, which I'm going to get into in a few minutes, can also have extra opportunities as well. Sometimes the organization will link up with certain businesses to get you discounts and stuff, but sometimes there are people who will donate items, and unless you ask for it, they're not going to know to give it to you. So the organization then can say, "Oh yeah, we've got some stuff. Let's take a look and see if we have some things available." So there's definitely an expensive side to that, but there are some things that you can do to help yourself. Don't fall into the trap of I've got to make sure that my kid has the most elite stuff, because then it's going to be super expensive. The next thing has to do with decision making. And speaking of like getting yourself into the mindset of how you approach things, do you want your child to be in just a recreational league, like a community league? Do you want them to be in a club, or are they moving on to a travel team? And a lot of times, travel teams you have to try out for. I bring this up because there are a lot of parents who think we've got to get our kid on a travel team and it's going to assure them of huge success down the road. For some kids, yes, but for a lot of kids, that might not be the case. Ask yourself this simple question: why is your kid playing the sport? Is your kid playing the sport because they just want to have fun? And there is nothing wrong with a Parks and Rec League. They can get plenty of opportunities to play. They can have a good time, and it's not gonna crush you financially. If they've got visions of being a little more competitive, then maybe a club team is an option. And from there, you're asking yourself, how competitive do we want to be? And by looking at a travel team, you really should be asking yourself this question. Eventually, what's the end goal? Does my kid have visions of going on to play in college or professionally? I will tell you this, that is super hard. Scholarships are not as available as most people realize. I was lucky enough to be a coach at a very successful program, one of the top programs in our state, and we did push out some kids that went on to play at the next level. I coached the boys in the fall and did the girls in the spring. Where I'm at, we have split seasons, which was pretty cool that I'd get to coach both. And I can tell you, in that time, we had some players who went on to play Division 1 ball and get full rides, but those are very few. Most of the time, your programs are offering partial scholarships, and at Division 3, you're not really getting scholarships athletically. You're getting maybe financial aid, you're getting academic scholarships, things of that nature. If you're really talented and you play at Division 3, sometimes it can be creative with scholarships. All of that, I'm telling you though, is because be careful. There are a lot of parents who think that their 6-year-old is destined for greatness in whatever sport they're playing. And so they look down the line and they think we're just gonna go all in on this travel on the best club team, the travel team, and we're going to get them all the coaching possible. And it's going to mean we're going to reap the benefits later on because we're not going to pay for college. The vast majority of the time, that doesn't happen. And I will tell you, a lot of parents, maybe even the majority of parents, once their kids get later in the teen years, get well in the high school, when they look back at their child and what they paid for youth sports, a lot of times well, let's just say a lot of times they would like to have some of that money back. And they think, we probably didn't need to do that. We probably didn't need to do that. So, all the way back to what I was saying again for this third point, recreation, parks and recreation leagues can be super helpful, especially if your kid is just starting off for sure. Make sure that it's a sport that they enjoy and something they like. But there's nothing that says that you need to dive in and pony up to play with a big club and get on a travel team. Your kid can just have fun, and those opportunities are available. And speaking of having fun, a lot of the times schools will offer programs. Sometimes in some cases, depending on the size of the school district, they'll offer intramural. But let's say, for example, middle school, there are a lot of programs where your child can even start in a sport there, depending on how competitive that middle school is. And they can just kind of learn the process. At the elementary level, they're not necessarily playing like, for the most part, not necessarily playing like a soccer team. We're not rolling out a basketball league, but they will often do clinics and maybe like week-long clinics where they'll partner up with a high school and partner up with local organizations. And that provides you, in many cases, like free opportunities for your kid to get exposure to a specific sport, find out if they like it or not. So that's another opportunity as well. So let's talk a little bit about if your kid is in and you're involved in the sport and you make the decision to be not just club ball, travel team, both of those can be very expensive. Anything involving travel, that is where it takes another level. I know a guy who his son is an adult now, but back in the day, his son played hockey and he was a very good player. And they had big aspirations and big dreams. So they had him in a league that was affiliated with an NHL team. And now, mind you, at this time, I believe he was probably 12, so still fairly young. And they ended up spending well over $10,000 a year for travel, hotel, food, equipment, league, all of it. And I will tell you, in the end, that young man, I'm not even sure he finished. I think maybe played up till the time he was 16, and that was it. That family would probably tell you they wish they had some of that money back. Travel expenses can be through the roof. So here's a couple tips about travel. And this is not rocket science, but a lot of the times you travel and the team will stay at the hotel. But you can save money if you just investigate and do some research and find maybe an Airbnb, a Verbo, a rental apartment, a house where you can get multiple families involved and you split the costs. Now, it's not just the cost of where you stay that saves you money in that case. it's also because you have access to a kitchen, you can make your own food and you can save a lot of money that way. So it's kind of two parts, and it can be, if you have to spend money, that can be a very good way for you to bring those costs down. And speaking of bringing food, that also, whether you're in a hotel or you're in a rental, bringing food is a great way to save money because everything costs money. When you're out on the road, you're buying, if you have to keep going to the store to buy things, you keep having to eat out, it's going to cost you a whole lot more. And those expenses over the course of a weekend will add up. And then if you have to travel multiple times in the course of your tournament for your travel team or your club, playing different tournaments, that's really going to add up. So bringing your food along with your snacks and all of that can save you a little bit of cash. The next thing I'll tell you is the cost of individual coaching and camps has skyrocketed. That has been a huge, huge expense that has gone up. And as valuable as individual coaching can be, especially when you've got a young kid, you could probably get away without it. Now, here's an option instead, and this won't cost you a thing. You, as a parent, can work with your kid. Now, one thing I'll often hear is the parent will say, well, I'm not very good at the sport. You don't really have to be. Here's a pro tip. Go on to YouTube. Just about every sport has great introductory coaching opportunities, like quick lessons to help you work with your kid. An example, my daughter she's getting ready to head to high school in the fall, and she's all about wrestling. And she's pretty talented. So we're considering, what we're going to do since she's pretty talented. Do we send her to a camp or things like that? We're analyzing all that. But again, it costs a lot of money. If I was going to work with her, I have next to no knowledge about wrestling. So when she started to go this route, I needed to do a little bit of diving into YouTube and figure out what on earth was going on so that maybe I could provide a little bit of assistance. So if you've got a younger kid especially, that's really valuable. And here's another tip. When you work with your kids, sometimes they don't enjoy working with their parents as much. It is very common if that's the case. Bringing in another, like a friend of theirs or two, maybe some kids in the community, to do the coaching session with all of them, your child's really going to reap the benefits from that because they're going to be more juiced because it's not just you and them. However, there are plenty of kids who enjoy time, just doing sports on an individual basis. So you don't necessarily need individual coaching. In many cases, you can provide that yourself, or a friend or a family can step in and help you. And if they're going to charge you, it's probably going to be at a much more reasonable discounted amount to help out. And the last thing I'm going to tell you is this, and this is a big one. There is a real pull. When I say pull, meaning it is an absolute pull hard to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to youth sports. And when I say that, I mean, there's a real feeling that not only do your kids need to have the best equipment and they need to be all decked out and everything, but they also need to be keeping up with everybody as far as the best leagues and the best teams and all of it. But in reality, what's the most important thing? That your kid participates and they're active and they have fun. It isn't always about competition. It's really about providing opportunities for your kids, and in this case, opportunities that aren't going to break your bank account, which is harder and harder, it seems like, on a daily basis now. So if you feel like we need to put my kid into this league, not because they're going to benefit from it, but just because some friends have joined that league and we got to keep up with them, that might not be the best decision for you and your child. So keep in mind, there is nothing really as far as like extra bonuses you get for just putting your kids at the highest levels and having to pay the highest amounts of money, or getting them the highest level gear and equipment. There's no bonuses that come with all that. The bonus really comes with the satisfaction they have of having fun when they're playing the sport. So there you have it. A few tips to help you with what is a very challenging price increase over the last couple of years, and it's not going down anytime soon. And now that you add in, especially if you're any kind of travel, you add in extra prices that have gone up with food, with gas, and anything else. It is just continuing to rise, which makes it harder and harder every single time your kid wants to get out and participate in a sport. So there you have it, people. The most important thing, get your kids involved. Let them pick and choose what it is they want to do, but try to find them ways to get involved without making you extremely poor and crushing your bank account. As always, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, on a live show, but you can get this on the podcast. Audio form is out there that gets pushed out a couple days later, and you can get this replay on YouTube as well. Dad's All In Hub. Please rate, review, subscribe, do all the things. It helps to get this pushed out to more people so more parents get access to the kinds of things we're sharing. Thanks so much for your time today, everybody. Have a great week, and keep your kids active. Get them involved in sports. Just be smart about it. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to the show. Be sure to follow me at Dad's All In Podcast on all the socials. You can also email me with any questions that you'd like answered on future shows, or just to provide me with feedback or ideas. Feel free to reach out to my email, dadsallinpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great one, my friend.